So just a brief intro. I am Melissa Skiffen. I'm a disability advocate here at Achieva. I'm also a parent of a fifth grader, soon to be sixth grader, and we're not talking about it. Um, and Kiefer has Down syndrome and autism. So I'm a parent and a professional, and I'm glad to see everyone here. I have been a Charting the Life course ambassador for about a year and a half, and I love it so much. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do, and I hope you guys enjoy the presentation this evening. I'm a little bit tired of hearing myself talk these days, so we kind of change up the presentation a little bit, and we're hoping to make it a little interactive. As always, you're willing, or you're able to participate as you feel comfortable. So if you want to leave your camera on, you're welcome to do that. If you don't want to turn your camera on, that's fine. If you need to leave and come back, that's fine too. Whatever works for you to be comfortable. Just a few things I wanted to go over before I start going through the slides and ultimately introduce Jack, the Director of Person-Centered Planning here at Achieva. If you're not familiar with Google Meets, I just wanted to go over a few of the buttons along the bottom. The first button you come to is your microphone on and off. The second one is your camera for your video. The third one is closed captioning. If you would like to have that turned on, you can. The fourth one is to raise your hand to ask a question, and then you can also click it again and unraise it. One of the cool new features on Google Meets is the reactions. They're super fun. I really enjoy them. Please don't give us a thumbs down. And then if you go the whole way over to the right side, there's a little two-person icon, and that's how you can see the participants. Then one next to that, it's actually the third icon in, is the chat. And then the next one, which is really important for later, is the activities. And it's a little icon of a triangle on top, square on the left, circle on the bottom. I'm going to be putting two polls into the chat, or into the activity section. I'll be doing that while Jack is giving you guys a brief overview of Charting the Life course for our interactive portion of the evening. So I just wanted to make sure that I pointed all of those things out before we go ahead and get started. So here is my quick introduction, and then we'll get to the important stuff of the meeting. Again, I am from Achieva, and Achieva Advocacy has been hosting these monthly presentations since August, trying to always have different topics and different presenters. Some have been from Achieva, some have been outside of the organization. So just a little tidbit, the next presentation is in April, and it's on adult protective services, and the presentation in May is going to be about support coordination and what all of that entails. So just to give you a little heads up, but I'll be sending out reminders closer to the date. So moving right along, welcome to Achieva Advocacy and Family Supports. The ARC of Greater Pittsburgh and ARC of Erie are members of the Achieva family of organizations. And this just gives an overview of all of the organizations that fall under the Achieva umbrella. And then this is where Achieva is throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The ones that are highlighted and bolded are where Achieva Advocacy is. So Erie, Beaver, Allegheny, and Westmoreland County. But then as you can see on this slide, that we're kind of spread out all across the Commonwealth. And our mission and vision, Achieva advocates for, empowers, and supports people with disabilities, their families throughout their lives, which I want to say this real quick now. I feel like Achieva has a lot of similarities to Charting the Life course as far as what the values are and the mission is. So I just wanted to kind of point that out real quick. Our vision is Achieva envisions a community where all people with disabilities lead lives of personal significance. Core values: respect, passion, ethics, change, and team. And then this is where it's going to go into Charting the Life course, and I'm going to introduce Jack. And Jack, I'll let you introduce yourself and give a quick introduction as to who you are and who you've been at Achieva, because I think that's an important part of the journey. But before you get into that, one of the things we talk about a lot with Charting the Life course is a lot about what people want, but it's also a lot about what people don't want, because a lot of times that's just as important, if not more important, than what somebody does want. So before Jack tells you all about what Charting the Life course is, I just wanted to share a few things about what Charting the Life course is not. It is not only for professional use. So anybody, anywhere can use these tools. It is not just about the tools. I like to think it's a mindset, it's a culture. Um, I know it really changed my vision and my perspective. It's not a program. It's not the new cool thing. It's really a way of thinking about things and also about the action of doing those things. It's not designed for just one specific age group. And what I think is one of the most important things, it's not solely for people with disabilities in their family. It truly is for all people all of the time. So Jack, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you while you do your intro. Just let me know when you're ready for me to advance the slide, and I'll go ahead and start getting the polls in for everyone to participate with too. So.
Good evening, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces in this space, and I just think that's awesome. This is being recorded, so I look for some of my fellow ambassadors, early adopters. There's innovators in this space. There's people that are implementing in the field. There are I think a large majority of you use these tools already. Some people, this is going to be the first time that you're hearing about charting the life course. Like Melissa said, I'm going to introduce myself to say a little bit about my experiences at Achieva because I think they're relevant. I started off at Achieva in 94. Really struggling with not completing a degree, struggling with what I wanted to do with my life. Life course was not around, for me at that time. However, there was a movement. The movement was deinstitutionalization. Many of you know about post-Olmstead Act and, the movement of, deinstitutionalization. And, people starting to choose, community types of support, and person-centered planning, was born. So you had Jack Pierpont, Beth Mount. I was trained, by, founders, of, the person-centered paradigm, back in those days. I think it was called, even then, the learning community. I know there are others in this room that, were, part of Michael Small's group of thinkers, and a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, not a lot of action. And I think that was impacted by some of the regulations that came into the field. And we've seen that in the late 90s with the ISP process, something that became very, very prescribed. And I'm not going to go too much further into detail about that process, but I will say about 10 years ago, I was exposed to the founders of Charting the Life course and what they were doing at the time, just learning from the learning community, developing resources. So most people that have gone through like a kickoff training, Charting the Life course, intro training, or even ambassador training are well read, when it comes to one of the framework tools called the STAR. We'll touch on that today, as well as the trajectory. When I look at this slide, what jumps out at me is high expectations. And to me, this is not disability centric. It's not provider centric. It's not system centric. It's person related. The high expectations are for everybody, from the provider to the person that we provide supports to in our own lives. Many of us set high expectations for ourselves. I know that there are people here that were up. I'm not going to mention any names, but one of the names rhymes with party. I know she was up at 4:30 this morning, and she's still going right now, at 6:41, p.m., so we all have high expectations, I'm sure. And these tools and these framework principles really help, capture, those thoughts and those actions that are necessary for a person to live a good life. Explore a variety of supports, explore life possibilities, share ideas. You're not going to find this on a slide, but one of the ideas that the cohort had in mind when they developed these tools was helping people think differently. Again, non-system related. So we'll go to the next slide now. I myself am a parent. I am a husband to my wife, and we live out in Ligonier. Many of you know that Achieva provides supports in Westmoreland County, Allegheny County. I know, we have a person that has been engaging in a person-centered process using Life Course tools that lives in Beaver County. We have supports and services that range, that go into Erie as well as Philadelphia. So, we definitely have a large reach. And now everything that we do really starts off, from a person-centered type of conversation. These tools, these framework tools, these 8 principles are used to facilitate conversation at our front door. You see all these images, and I don't really have the time to go into the weeds on what all of the principles can offer, but I'll give a high level here of them. Starting with the buckets. When we look at our front door, when we look at a new person that's interested in having a conversation with somebody at Achieva, whether that's an advocate or it's somebody from our employment program, or if it's somebody from our community supports program, it could be somebody that's interested in a trust. We really start off with a discovery process, and we look to fill the buckets, whether it's engaging the person in a way that we can give a warm handoff to an expert in the area of interest, or it is a referral that we can make, both, inside of our organization and or externally. The buckets to me is, really us providing tangible resources to the person that's interested in some type of support, resource, or help. The star is right in the middle. And, for me, the star is, where I started with Life Course. It is a place where you can store resources that are important for an event. It is a brainstorming tool. It can be used also to come up with strategic solutions. Melissa already covered it. This is not disability centric. This is for people with and without disabilities. And I use it quite frequently whenever I set a new goal. I always just look at my hand when it comes to the domains in the star. I go left to right, starting in the red with technology. Again, if I'm going to engage in some type of new activity, like right now, I got this bug where, Achieva has a fundraiser. It's associated with the marathon, Pittsburgh Marathon, coming up in May. And a couple months ago, I thought, well, I'd like to, generate some money, some funds for, Autism Connections, a part of the Achieva family. And I started training for a marathon. And believe me, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So I look at the rat, and I look at technology, and I think about YouTube and, all of the people that I'm following right now. Then I go to the blue or light blue with strengths. And, one of the strengths that I have is, I'm driven. I'm going to make this happen no matter what. And then, I go to the purple with relationships, and I look at all the people that are being so supportive. I can just think of one person right now, a fellow exec team member, and her name's Jody. She's part of our fundraising branch of the organization in development, and she's run marathons, so she's kind of coaching me along, when it comes to the training. Now the green really is where we start to talk about eligibility. What are we eligible for? And again, this is when at times, we can get into the types of funding that's necessary for a person that might need employment or they need housing. For me, my eligibility might be my YMCA membership or my GNC card, having Wi-Fi and being able to do all the things that I need to do to research what I need to do to accomplish this goal, or the technology, that, I am using, for, counting my steps and how many miles I'm running. Last is in the blue, and that's just the community resources. Already mentioned the why. So I went into the weeds a little bit more with that one, just because, we might be seeing that again today. Maybe not. The one with the pillars, that's all about systems, advocacy, and change. The focus, whether it's for the state or the federal government, or it's local, or it's a provider, is to focus on the person in the context of their family. Can't say that enough. And when it comes to person-centeredness, there are always two camps, it seems like, and I think both camps can be in the same camp, but it seems like you get separated with family-centered and person-centered. Not a conversation for today, but definitely, something to be considered when you're supporting somebody, and or, somebody, is engaging in some type of, activity, and they're looking to achieve a goal, and you're helping them with that. The trajectory, you see a little arrow that's pointed up. It's pointed up, to the purple. That's where we want to be. Down to the green is where we don't want to be. And we'll talk more about the trajectory. And I'm going to be going to the next slide. But before we do, I want to say one more thing, about the trajectory. And Melissa already mentioned it earlier. We want to focus on what a person wants. We want to focus on what we want. And if we don't know that, we can always go to what we don't want, whether it's with an event, an activity, a strategic goal. It's interesting, there are plenty of people that just, they don't want to use the star for whatever reason. They're not into it. Maybe it's their position, or maybe, they're more of a pros and cons person. It's fine. You can use whatever tool makes sense to you. But normally you're going to find those two questions. What do you want? What don't you want? Recently, one of the VPs I work with weekly went over the letter SWOT. Some people are going to know what a SWOT analysis is. I'm telling you right now, it is born right out of a trajectory. It goes over strengths, it goes over threats, it goes over opportunities, it goes over weaknesses. That's all, the information that we need to work towards a goal, ourselves, and or help a person with working towards their goal. So we'll go to the next slide. I got into the weeds with the star and the trajectory, but we can't forget about the life stages and the life domains, and you see them in front of you for whatever reason. The life stages are actually on the right, life domains are on the left. You can read through them, but infancy through adulthood, right? We can plan in all of these stages, and I'm gonna let Melissa talk a little bit about this. I think through my experience, my focus has been more on the transition age. But, Melissa mentioned something recently to me when we were planning for this. She's like, you're always transitioning, Jack, so maybe she might want to, go into that in a little bit more detail. And having a daughter that's now 12 years old, somebody said, kids are good with change because they're constantly changing. I started thinking about it, and that was a true statement. Feet are getting bigger, body's getting bigger, hormones are changing, right? And you gotta hand it to them, because they're adjusting to those changes daily, and they're able to balance that out. Again, when we look at life domains, we have to consider these issues. When we're helping a person with planning, a person is planning themselves, they should be focused on these issues, or we're facilitating the process. I think about my daughter recently. She had a competition this last weekend, and her body has changed so much. I was kind of holding my breath when she was going up to do her flips in the air and everything. So, we think about safety and security, I think, in our field work as well as in our personal lives, whether it's for our parents, or it's for ourselves or spouses, the people that we love, or, our family, our children. Social and spirituality, citizenship and advocacy. So again, you have all the life domains, you have all the life stages. And, the phrase I've been using recently is, we support people during all stages and all ages. And it's true. I think, though, we really want to focus on diversionary types of, supports. Supports that will eliminate our jobs. I look at Mary, or at least the M, she's an ambassador. There are others in this space that, are ambassadors, and, I'm trying to do a good job in eliminating the need for me, to continue to present, these ideas, because I think at some point we won't be talking about charting the life course. We'll be talking about people living their good life. Next slide. There's the core belief, and I just want to end with two things. One is, when I was vetting the different person-centered frameworks that are out there, and there are plenty of them. There's paths, I already mentioned the learning community, obviously life course, there's maps. There are all different vendors out there. Why I think we chose Charting the Life Course is because their core belief was in line with our core belief, values, vision, mission statement. So we had, that connection with them. And I will leave off with where, I think Melissa also, had focused on what it's not, right? And Melissa, I call this lessons learned. So take this for what it's worth. And this can be easily said that this is where I went wrong. So let's just start with that and just say, maybe I didn't have the humility that I should have, when I went into this. I thought, life course was the end all be all. I didn't realize that, there were other ways, to support a person's dream, to help a person, lead their good life. Jargon, I use it, I've, used it in the past. And if I could reduce the use of, what I call service land jargon, I would. It does happen from time to time, but I think I've learned the lesson that we need to use plain English, plain language, or whatever form of communication a person is using, whether that's Spanish or whether that's closed captions or whether that's, supporting, a person that is using some type of augmented sign or technology or, behavior for that matter. So, again, steering clear of the jargon. Doing it for the person, I probably have said it, like, hey, we're doing a person-centered, plan for a person. And, I think our focus now is really with or supporting the person and, doing their own plan and or planning and action. This is something that I learned, from the founder of, the learning community person-centered lens. And that is, don't fall victim to the single framework mindset. I'll just, leave that out there, that all people will buy in. I've learned that not all people are going to, buy in, to the person-centered way of doing things. A lot of people are very centered on health and safety and compliance. I think we can live together and do just fine together, but as long as that person is in the center of the conversation, that you won't offend somebody. It does happen where, you offend people. Maybe it's because of your passion, maybe it's, because of, where you're at in the change process. maybe you just don't get along with somebody, so that happens from time to time. Making it mandatory, I'll end there. We've had a lot of talks about making it mandatory. ODP's had, conversations about making it mandatory, or, really infusing it into the ISP process. I think that will happen sooner rather than later. But forcing people to engage, with the life course tools or in-person center planning, it is not going to be helpful. Influencing people to see the value in it will. Infusing it into, a process may be helpful, but forcing people to engage in, life course or any other framework and process, can be challenging at times. So, I've learned, that that's not the route to take. So I'll pass the mic, back to Melissa, and, let her set the scene, for, our small group activity. That's going to be a lot more fun, than listening to me, I'm sure. But I thank you all for being here today, and look forward to learning with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack, for that awesome overview. I feel like, I personally feel like I could talk about charting the life course for days, but everyone would get really bored with that and tired, and people have to go to work and do those things. So we can't do that. We can't do that. But one thing that I really enjoy about charting the life course is how visual it is. I'm definitely a visual learner. I like the tools. I like that they can be a guideline. They can guide me. They can help me do my work. I think when Jack, you mentioned about life being, all of transitions, life is all of transitions. You know what I mean? And you can use charting the life course to kind of pre-plan for those, plan during those, look at back after those. I'll give an example of that. Jack and I were asked to do a presentation on charting the life course back in October, and I used some of the tools to envision what I envisioned for my son's transition to 6th grade next year, to middle school, from elementary to middle school. Well, that was October, and it's now March. And if I were to do those tools again today and fill them out, they'd look completely different. And they should, because he is a different kid. He's grown and he's learned, and all of those things have changed about him. These tools aren't supposed to be a one and done kind of a thing. It's not something that you do and you put it on the shelf and you just forget about it and check the box. Like, it's supposed to be something that ebbs and flows, and you do it when you need to or when you want to. Another thing that I think is cool about it is if I filled out a tool and my husband filled out a tool and our son filled out a tool, they should all look different. Every single one of them should be different, because it should be from our own perspective. So yes, Jack, absolutely. Live and breathe, ebb and flow, all of that stuff. It's supposed to evolve. It's supposed to change. So that is one of the things that I really do love about all of this. And, it doesn't have to be, you're going to see in a few minutes kind of how we're going to work through these activities. But it doesn't have to be like the big life event, like new job. You know what I mean? If your student is considering, do I want to go to college or do I want to go to the workforce? You can use these Concepts. If your student is considering, what college do I want to go to? I have a top 3. You can use these. You know what I mean? If your kiddo is going to middle school, you can use these. If you're trying to decide on a vo-tech program, you can use these. So it doesn't have to be the big, which house do I buy or where do I go on vacation? It can be those things, but it really doesn't have to be. And I also like to keep these tools and use them as kind of a point of reference, because sometimes you got to look back at where you started to remember where you're going. So I like to use them as kind of like, oh, okay, that's where we were then. And now, kind of compare to where we are now. So it's a super cool thing. I really enjoy doing it. I think it's fun. And again, we could have sat here for the next hour and you guys could have listened to Jack and I talk, but ultimately, that's really not as fun as it possibly could be. So let's chart the course. And I am going to stop sharing here for a moment so I can see my whole screen. And I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll, because you guys are going to choose as a group what life event we're going to talk about, and then you're going to choose one of the two tools that we're going to use to talk about that life event. Because charting the life course and person-centered planning isn't something that you just talk about or read about. It's something that you do. It requires action, because if not, it's just another piece of paper. So we thought, let's just do it together. Let's work through it together. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll, and let me know if you guys can see that. It should have popped up. If not, if you go down to the little icon in the right corner with the triangle, square, and circle, and click on that and click on polls, it'll bring it up. Okay, somebody found it for housing. So I know it's live because somebody used it. Oh, one for retirement. All right. Housing, transition. Oh, okay. Thank you, Kara. Thank you. All right, that's 6 votes in. Give it another second here to see if anybody else wants to vote, because it's kind of tied right now on transition to high school and housing. So I at least need a tiebreaker to come in. All right, Jack, be the tiebreaker. Close your eyes, hover the mouse over the poll, and click one.
So is it high school and housing?
Yeah, it's between transition from high school and housing.
So I'm just gonna let everybody know what I'm gonna do. I mean, I'm gonna pick high school.
Wait, Jamie's here. You don't get to vote.
Okay.
Jamie's back. Dr. Foster, we need you to break the tie between transition from high school and housing in the poll.
Ooh, okay. Do you want me to do it in the poll, or do you want me to just say?
Either way.
I choose housing.
All right, housing it is. All right, so we're going with housing. And then now, yes, Kara, you are absolutely right. And now we're going to choose which tool we use first. So there's your second poll: integrated support star or the trajectory. I got 1 vote for the star. Oh. Tied up 2-2. Oh, trajectory takes the lead. Oh, back to the support star. Man, this is exciting. See, Jack, I told you this was going to be a good time. All right, we're tied again. 3-3. Oh, trajectory just took the lead. All right. Did everyone get to vote that's going to vote? Going once, twice. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. So we're doing housing and trajectory. Okay. So give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up my trajectory here. All right. Can everybody see that? Okay. I'm going to go up here. Housing. All right. Jack, do you want to go ahead and kick this off a little bit? And
I can't remember who Clyde is. I'm sorry if that was.
It's Aaron Grimes.
It's Aaron. I'm sorry, Aaron. I do it with you. I apologize. Aaron raised her hand.
Got Aaron.
I'm sorry, that was a mistake. I apologize.
Oh, you're fine.
No worries. We know the hand raise works awesome.
Yes. Glad we
Put her
trust
down.
better. Yeah. All right. So this is what the trajectory looks like. And of course, I'm clicking on all the wrong things. So at the top, on left side, we have past life experiences and events that supported your vision of a good life. And then the next one over is future life experiences, list of current future events or experiences that continue supporting your vision of good life. So past and future. And then on the far right side, top of the page, is Vision for a Good Life. And that is where we're going to put in all of the things that we envision for a good life relating to housing. And as you can see, the arrow is going up, which that's where we want things to go. We want that arrow going up. But sometimes the arrow goes down. So we want to also identify past life experiences that push the arrow toward things you don't want. And then the next box over is life experiences to avoid because they push you towards things you don't want. And then obviously the very bottom box of the end of the down arrow is list of things that you don't want in your life. So for me, a good example is that I don't want to live in a townhouse. I'll go ahead and kick it off just because I like my space and I don't want to share walls with people I don't know.
Yeah, I like that one. Being that I lived in a townhouse as well, and I think this goes back to what I was talking about when it came to the SWOT, right? With what would threaten your idea of a good life, right? And for you it would be going backwards, right? Being back in that townhouse. I'm just gonna say townhouse too.
Okay. Can you see me typing on the screen? Is it working?
Not yet.
Maybe I need to. Oh, it didn't come up. It's showing it on mine. It's not showing it on your.
So Kara sees you typing, and I don't know. Don't worry about me as long as everybody else can see.
Okay. All right. What else? What else do we have? Things we want, things we don't want. Past life experiences that were good. Oh, Jack, I'll let you go ahead and.
So Mary was first before Marty. Like, she does not want to live somewhere where there's not a yard. So, I don't know how else to say that. And I can't see you typing. Now, Marty has her hand up, so she's next. Marty.
I want a safe area. Unfortunately, a lot of the affordable housing isn't always in a safe area.
That's part of your vision for a good life is safe area.
Being safe, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And just to again model this process, it could also go under what I don't want, at risk, crime, numbers, that type of thing. So you can just use this tool however you want to use it. Color outside of the lines if you need to. Sharon's up next.
I like to live with people that I feel comfortable with. So the people that are in my space are important.
Okay.
Kara does not, she wants to be able to live within her own means, so what you're familiar with, living without debt. So being in debt is something she doesn't want, right? Not having enough food, for example, so, not having the nutrition she needs would be an example, which doesn't. Jamie, you're up.
Yeah, so I personally don't want to live in an area that's far away from fun activities to do. I would like to live kind of in a hub where I can walk easily to go to the movies or go maybe to Phipps or something like that.
Awesome. Awesome. What are some of past life experiences that support your vision for a good life or past life experiences that you makes you remember what you don't want? Mine was living out of state.
Just going in order, Mary wants to be close to her family, which makes great sense to me. But Kara answered your question.
Okay.
Food benefits going down, so it sounds like the economy or benefits being
losing
reduced.
Benefits.
Yeah. Would be an example of excellent point. Both excellent points.
Yep. I like it. Trying to think. Life experiences to avoid. I don't know. I think when you guys had mentioned like living beyond your means, I think that's something that you want to avoid.
Yeah, that one. And here's an easy one that I also agree with.
I like easy ones. Give me
Drama.
drama.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So that's going to go in past life experiences and in this one. We do not know drama llama. Awesome. Oh, future.
Ma-
Whoop, good.
Mary has close to my family.
Yes. Would that be past life and future life? Or vision for a good life, Mary?
Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute. So in the past, I've lived too far, and
Okay.
so as we look at having to choose housing that's more age friendly, shall we say?
Sure.
We talk about how close we are to our people.
Yes. Yes. It is important to be close to people that are important to us.
Mary, thank you for that. And I'm asking, and I don't want to get off track, but did we ever think about like prioritizing, these elements, let's say, that we're filling in? Like, is being close to your family, number one? Or, Jamie, is it like being close to activity that you enjoy, where your passion lies, number one? Have we ever done anything like that? I'm asking, anybody that's ever used the life course tool, because that's what's so fun about it. You can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. And then if you don't like it, you just delete it and start over again. I like that too. Kara, I was thinking about some of the things that you shared with me over the year or so that we've been talking. And I shared for future life experiences that it's important to live close to grocery stores and public transportation. Would you agree? Yes, I thought you might. I think that is important. What about like Jamie had said about, close to a hub of activity? What about being close to like the gym, or, do you prefer to walk or ride a bike? Do you want to take public transportation? Jack and I both live pretty far outside of Pittsburgh, so we have to drive. Like, I think those are important things to consider too when you're thinking about where you're going to live. What do you guys think?
I missed Aaron. I'm sorry, Aaron. But parsing out toxic people in our life, and I mean, I think that could go a long way, right? I mean, that could be past, that could be present, that could be future.
Yeah,
it's an awesome goal. So, James, or idea for that matter, James.
Sorry, that was an accident, but yeah, I did want to say, I think that something also to consider in, where you're living is who you want to live with. Personally, I don't want a lot of roommates because I lived on a, sorority wing, and fighting for the shower in the morning is not my idea of fun. So that's something to consider too, going back to past life experiences.
for sure. For sure.
I got something here, Melissa. I'm going to start building this around the idea of, having interdependence. And I think to me that means the staff that I need, whether, it is, somebody that takes care of my my hobbies and helps keep everything maintenance, my mechanic, or it could be a staff person, right?
Sure.
And with that interdependence, there are plenty of people that want their own home, right?
Right.
They don't want to provide their own home, and that could be a goal. But what has pushed people down, away from that goal in the past is, you know, laws, laws that
Yep.
are antiquated, laws that, almost force people, that rely on funding for, their interdependence, let's say, to be poor, So
Sure.
I want to say something about socioeconomic discrimination, but I don't know how to put that in layman's terms, so go for it, Melissa, help me.
I was just going to write socioeconomic.
Perfect. As long as that's appropriate.
I think it is. I
Yeah.
think it is.
And I just want to share with y'all, like, we're experiencing that today. Like, there are people that have, let's say a home in a trust, but they're unable to get 24/7 staff, because they have an asset like that. So, I just want to encourage, engaging in benefits counseling. So, that also might be a strategy that we put in here, right, Melissa?
Yep.
That can push a trajectory up, before you make any major purchases, before you inherit money, before you put money in a banking account, benefits counseling, I think is helpful. So.
Sure. And one of the things I added to while you were talking, Jack, is I was thinking about some of the people that I know that are here tonight, and how much they care about their pets. So, dog parks or parks, neighborhoods to walk your dogs in, or a nice big backyard, for your dog's hanging out. Or in my case, I need a nice big backyard for my fire pit so I can enjoy my summer evenings, and as soon as it's warm enough, outside on my Saturday nights. And do that in the city.
Melissa, I was going to say a fenced-in yard, but
Oh, yep.
that would be number one for me.
Got it. Would that be probably past, present, and future for you?
Yes. If I didn't have dogs right now, I would still want a fenced-in yard.
We don't have a dog right now, and I love my fenced-in yard. Although I do have chickens, so I mean, it's kind of helpful to keep them where they need to be. What about a big house or a smaller house? Like, I love huge, old, historical houses, but then I think about the heating cost to heat them in the wintertime and how much time it would take to clean them. So maybe that's something I kind of want, but I don't want at the same time. What about that? Like, those kinds of things make me go, where does that belong on this list, I think.
Melissa, I'm sorry.
Yes.
This is Mary. Speaking
Hi,
of
Mary.
dogs, I just had to leave mine back in. So could you repeat that? I apologize.
No, I was just saying that I love big old historical houses, but the thought of heating a big old historical house doesn't really excite me in a Western Pennsylvania winter.
Yeah.
And it doesn't excite me to clean it either. So maybe that kind of, I don't know where to foul that, because it's something that I would love to have, but something I also don't know that I would love to have. It kind of goes in all those spaces.
Well, you just made me think of something.
Yes.
And I was really focused on, this is what's so cool about, I think, this process is you can brainstorm so easily. I was thinking about Jamie, being an OT, and let's say, you weren't planning for retirement, and or you use a wheelchair, or you have problems with ambulating. Wouldn't an OT perspective be helpful if you were designing, purchasing, even renting a home, right? Or making adaptations, for that matter, if you were a provider. So I think that OT role could go so far. But then you said what you said, and I'm sitting in one right now, and I'm starting to think about informed decision making, or Life Course calls it supported decision making.
Yep.
And I think that's such an important process. When we're at the ISP meeting, we're talking to somebody about voting, or we're talking to somebody about employment options, or in this case, where they want to live, right? Supported decision making. Go ahead.
Nope, I was just agreeing with you. And I think that supported decision piece goes back to, having your loved ones close. But I think with the cool thing about technology, which we'll probably talk about when we get to the star. But the cool thing about technology is that we're all doing it right now. You know what I mean? We're all engaging, we're all brainstorming, we're all working together as a team. We don't have to be in the same physical space to do that. So I think that is really kind of cool, you know? I don't know. I feel like in 19 minutes, we put together a lot of good stuff. What do you guys think? Yes. Good. I'm glad you like it, Kara. Awesome. And thank you, Sharon, for the thumbs up and not the thumbs down. Greatly
Yeah, I
appreciate
was
it. I
thinking
love
about
it.
Sharon, and I wasn't going to ask her, but since she put the thumbs up, if she was one that was looking for elementary type of transition planning. I don't know who was interested in that, but I'm hoping that through modeling the way we have with the housing option, that you would be able to apply the same principles when it comes to filling out the trajectory for education transitions, whatever that might be.
Sure.
One last thing, I think what's most beneficial is we have holidays that are coming up, obviously, is who you invite to the holiday table, right? That's what makes it interesting, for better or for worse. But I think the same thing goes when you're engaging in brainstorming. Obviously, we have a lot of people in this space with great ideas, experience, both in the field and purchasing homes. So I think that's what's making this trajectory come to life. So when you are planning, consider who you're planning with.
Yes. Yes, I think that makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. So I took that one down because I felt like we did a pretty good job teasing out the housing stuff. And obviously, it's generic because we're in a group. But I think that is also the beauty of charting the life course, is that we did it as a group and it worked, or you could do it as by yourself and that works, or you could do it as a family. You know what I mean? You could do it as coworkers. Erin has the misfortune of sharing space with me every Monday, and I'm sure that and I could probably fill out a couple of these together. And poor Jack has been doing this with me for a couple of years. So, but the cool thing is that we've talked about all of this stuff before, and we've never had a trajectory that looked like that because it's unique to this group. So, if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to do the poll one more time for the life event, and then also show you guys the integrated support star too. We have about we could take another 15-20 minutes or so and do that if that's okay, and then we'll open it up to Q&A at the end. Mary's given the thumb. Oh, I'm getting lots of, I see, I am totally digging these emojis. These are so fantastic. All right, here we go. Gonna launch it. All right. Transition from high school, new job, or retirement. Jack, no thumbs down. No. Oh, one vote for new job. Oh, 4 votes for new job, 1 vote for retirement. All right. See, Jack and I talked about this yesterday. We were trying to figure out what everyone was going to pick, and I'm 100% certain neither one of us picked new job. So that's the beauty of all of this. Oh, 5 votes for, I feel like new job just totally knocked it out of the park with 5 votes. So fantastic. All right. Let me end the poll. And I appreciate you guys' patience too. Usually when we're doing these, when I'm hosting these presentations, I'm not actually engaging other than running the tech side of it. So I appreciate your patience while I'm doing a little bit of both at the same time. All right, let's get this up and see if we can see it. All right, how's that look, everyone? Can we see? Good. Thanks, Jane.
Good.
Awesome. Okay, so Jack touched on this before, but it was like an hour ago. So let's touch on it again. This is the integrated support star. And as you can see, the person would go in the middle, but we're a group. So we're just going to put all stages, because why not? And new job, 2022 or 23. Okay, I ran out of space, but that's fine. All right, so up here at the top, we have personal strengths and assets. Over here to the left, we have technology. Bottom left is community-based. Eligibility specific, which is the least fun of all, is on the right. And then up here on the far right is purple and relationship. So Jack, do you want to kick it off? I know you're a fan of starting at the technology. So do you want to think about a new job, Jack? What are we putting in here? Give me an example.
I will. Man, I'm sure other people could. It seems like even Kara's already jumping on this, but I wanted to mention
Kara's
something.
well versed in this,
and I'm sure Jamie, has ideas. I'm sure everybody has ideas. But the one thing I wanted to mention before we decided where we'll go from here is that these domains, right? These text box can be split, and Melissa, you and I have used it that way,
Sure.
right? And what's kind of cool about that is it's like, let's take technology. And she's right. I always start with technology. So I'm running off of what Kara put in chat. She put about a work from home job would be ideal for her, right? So, here's the questions we would have to ask. Kara, excuse me. Does she have strong Wi-Fi, right? That's going to be important. Now, an employer might help with that, but we have to look also, at her home. Does she have a space in her home where she could set up shop, right?
Sure.
So technology could be anywhere from a stand-up desk, to something else. So that's where I normally start. During COVID, I had to get a new provider because I'm all the way out in the sticks, out near Ligonier, out near.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was horrible. They make fun of me because I'd pause
we did not make fun of you.
Yeah, he'd be like, okay, wait 10 seconds for Jack to respond. And that's an issue, and one of the issues that we have, from an advocacy standpoint is disparities among people with disabilities to, healthcare, and that includes, that type of remote, healthcare. So, technology is big. Anyone else, have ideas besides the, what we already put in there about Wi-Fi? Obviously, I'll just add one. Indeed, using some type of search engine for, researching. So, Jamie's up.
Good, Jamie.
Yeah, those are great ideas that you had, Jack. One thing I was thinking of too is access to, and also probably literacy for Microsoft Word or Google Drive or other programs to create a resume, access to Zoom or Google Meet, particularly if you want to do a remote job. The interview is probably going to be on Zoom or Google Meet, something like that, knowing how to work it. And I have probably a million ideas, but I'll cut it off there.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that whole thing makes me think about going up to personal strengths and assets, because if you're going to work a remote position, most of the time you need to be a self-starter. You need to not need a lot of, guidance or motivation, I guess, you know what I mean, to be able to work from home, because there are distractions at home. I work from home a lot, and there are days where I'm like, I need to do laundry, but not right now, you know what I mean? But and Jack and I have talked about this. I make sure that I sit in a space where I can't see anything else in the house. I can't see that I need to wash the dishes in the kitchen, and I can't see the laundry basket. And you know what I mean? I make sure I'm intentional about my location so that I am not so distracted. But I think that some of those personal strengths and assets that go into a remote job are working independently, being a self-starter, not needing that constant supervision. So that's what that made me think of.
It made me think of a meeting I had with Jamie earlier last week, where she was at the library studying for her boards or whatever she was doing, and she had to find a space in the library where she could be loud. I guess you have to be quiet in the library, so I get kicked out, right, Marty? But so that would go under community, right? Is that the blue one down below, or not?
Yep. Community based.
Okay.
Quiet space or space to be loud. Yeah. But would transportation go under community based? Like if we're not talking about a remote job and or maybe it is a remote job but the interview's in person, like would transportation, is that where transportation would go?
Mary, you did a star on this, right? Wasn't that you? Would you, where would you put transportation?
This is my first time in Google Meets, so I'm still like,
You're
You're
good.
button go. So actually, Jack, the whole star that I did was around transportation.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, so it doubted even more
Um,
narrow than what we're talking
So
today.
I think though that transportation could be under yes, community.
Okay.
Right. Both where is the bus stop and are you working with somebody that you carpool with? Under eligibility, right? Are you eligible for reduced fare or access?
Yep.
Technology, because if not that I do it, my kids do it. If I use Uber or Lyft,
Yes.
but even the public transportation now, you go on your phone, you know where your bus is. If you take access, you know where your access, driver is.
How about
So
the
I think
T?
that's one
very
of the interesting things about this is that there's no wrong answer,
right.
right?
Which is what I love because I can't mess it up.
No, you can't. And really, I mean, if we're gonna continue, again, do you have relationships that is somebody
Yep.
going your way?
Sure.
And then for personal strengths, not everybody is cut out to get on the bus, and not everybody wants to drive. Not everybody wants to drive far. So,
Sure.
it's, So again, just no wrong answer.
Yeah, I'm even thinking, Mary, what's your official title? And I'm asking for a reason. Could you share that with us?
Oh, sure. So I work for the Department of Human Services Office of Developmental Programs, and I am the Community and Communications Liaison.
So, Kara, somebody like Mary is a good example of a resource that could be helpful when you're on a
Sure.
job search or you're looking to network. So if I'm thinking about employment, like let's say for whatever reason, Achieva shut down tomorrow, after 28 years, I'm looking for a job. I'd probably call Mary, so
Right.
I'm just putting that out there, so thanks.
And I would take that call, Jack.
Awesome.
I love this so much.
Kara has
So
her hand up.
fun. Good, Kara.
I would love to have Mary as my job coach. She can just work on my have her work on my resume, and I can she can email me and she can work on my resume to help me look for a remote job to solve the transportation issue.
I think everyone would love to have a Mary, but Mary's not in your county, Kara. So we gotta work with what we have. But I think this might be helpful for you because I know you've been talking about getting a new job. So maybe this is something that we can share with some of the people that support you if you want to. What do you think?
That'd be good. So
Okay.
the good thing about virtual options, I would be able to talk to more people that's not in my county and be able
Yeah.
to hang out and
Sure.
do more groups that are not in my county.
Yeah. I'm going to put that on here. Virtual options. Broaden opportunities. And I think it's important to talk about relationships. And Kara, I know we talk a lot about this in Empowered Voices, but relationships are everything from a romantic relationship to a family relationship, or there's a gentleman that works at my local gas station that I see frequently. He and I have a relationship. It's an acquaintance, but that's still a relationship. You know what I mean? So when we're thinking about relationships, it's not just your friends or your family. It is they're included too, but it can be, your supervisor, your coworkers, your job coach, your mentor. A lot of times when you start a new job, they don't just, send you out and wish you the best of luck. There's a mentoring process through there. So those are all relationships too that I think it's important to consider when we're talking about all things, which is why it's part of the star, I think.
How about, employment, in how about grants too? For employment. I'm thinking, right now, ODP is offering up a Switchy grant, and that's an opportunity to build resources, for people, who have disabilities. So, under eligibility, let's think about like grant entrepreneurship with OVR. How could you encapsulate that, Melissa?
I did put internships, and I did have OVR on there.
Okay.
I'm trying to think too. I know sometimes, if you go through like a technical school, whether it's a VOTEC in high school or, a technical school, post-secondary, or colleges too, have internships, externships, you know what I mean? All of those opportunities too. I think that falls under eligibility, but I can also see that falling under relationships or community-based as well.
Aaron, you're up.
I was going to say today during our healthy relationship peer group, we were discussing service and therapy animals, and someone joined us who her therapy dog is able to go to work with her, and what a benefit that is, how her employer embraces that within their organization, helps her through her day and
That's
struggles.
awesome.
And yeah,
Would that go under eligibility? Because I know you have to have a certain diagnosis to have a service animal.
I was going to say eligibility and relationship too.
Yep.
You read my mind, Aaron. Yeah, so this is what's cool about the star. Like, you could literally put that like on the border
Everywhere.
of relationships and eligibility,
Sure.
or you could just put it in both, like Aaron just suggested. It could also be in community based as well, so that's awesome. Yeah.
And one of the things, Jack, you just made me think of it, and I meant to mention it earlier, so I'm glad you said what you said. So yes, I'm definitely typing on a star because it's easy for me to present and type so everyone can see it. But these tools are really accessible. You know what I mean? If you want to print it out and write on the darn thing, you can write on it. You can color code it. You can do whatever you want. When I've worked on it with my son who struggles with fine motor skills, we've cut out pictures. He's glued pictures on there. It can be that way too. You can draw pictures on there. It can be how it can look however you want it to look. It can be however you want it to be. So just because it's up on the screen and I'm typing on it doesn't mean that the only way to use these tools is by typing or anything like that. They really are accessible. So
Yeah, one of Dr. Foster's colleagues in OT.
you like calling her Dr. Foster?
I do.
Huh?
I really
Yeah.
do. Like, just selfishly because I was part of it. I already said I have issues with humility, but anyway, she created a tactile star for people who are blind or visually impaired. It was just ingenious, So, I mean, the point is just reinforcing what you just said, really. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to put that under technology too, because, for example, Google comes up with a lot of accessibility features like speech to text and other things. You just have to enable them. But I want to put that under technology too, because maybe that's helpful to someone. I use it all the time, just because sometimes I want to get my words out. So the speech to text option is really cool.
I could add something to piggyback off what Jack said is years ago, I supported someone who used basic sign language, but her BS behavioralist created a pamphlet basically for everyone who supported her with symbols and words that this particular lady used. And it was so tremendously helpful to not try to guess what it was that she was asking for and to actually see what it was that she was asking for and what it was that she needed and what she needed from you. And I still have that pamphlet to this day, and it's probably 8 years ago. And I just think it's amazing.
That is awesome. And I put that under technology too, the customized language, but I'm also going to put that, put support people under relationships because I think it's important to include them.
It's funny, Aaron. Melissa and I, we made a decision not to put a one-page profile in as an option, and I still agree with that decision. Look how much time it's taken us just for these two.
Sure.
But that's exactly what a one-page profile can do. But one-page profile is just so boring. What Aaron brought up about a pamphlet, or we talked about a tactile, star, or maybe it's a painting. Whatever it is, it just gives us a good idea of what's important to, what's important for, a person. What do we admire about a person? What are their strengths? And what do we need to consider? Like, I'm a very loud person, obviously. So, I might need to change that depending on who the audience is, obviously, right?
Sure. And you know what, I feel like, again, I mentioned earlier how much I appreciate the visual component of these, because when I look at this, I see we have a good bit under technology. I feel like we have the most there. We have a decent amount under relationships, some stuff under personal strengths and assets. But when you're completing the star, you kind of want it to not all be filled out, but you want to make sure that you have stuff in every section. So if I look at this, it says to me that we're kind of lacking in the community-based section. So we want to be intentional about how do we add things to that section.
Some people will use this as like a gap analysis to
Yep.
look at, okay,
What's
where
missing?
are the right, where are the holes at, So when we're looking at community-based right away, I think career link, that's old school,
Yes.
I'm old, but we would go to this unemployment office, right? If we were looking for employment, Jamie, you might, be going to your career center at Duquesne. Is that right? Like, where else would you go? Like, career fair.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking of too is when you start a new job, well, I'm assuming this, I don't have a job yet, but I'm assuming when you start a new job, especially if it's remote, but for any job, sometimes it can feel like, that's your whole world. So maybe the community services could include or community, I forget what the title is, but maybe that could include something, outside of work, or even if, there's, I don't know if this exists, but maybe there's different career support groups, like I don't know if you're
Like an employee resource group or something.
yeah, things like that too.
Or like a mentoring program. Like,
We
I know,
could use
God,
volunteerism under there as well to
Thank
build
you.
skills.
That I don't know why we weren't thinking it that way. Marty, that's an excellent point. I'm thinking like CBAs, CBEs. I
Mhm.
know I said we'd steer clear of jargon, but Mary, go ahead.
Do I need to put my hand down? I'm sorry. I was thinking about Dress for Success.
Can you tell us more about what that is, Mary?
Yeah, so it's a community resource that helps folks have appropriate work attire, excuse me.
Right.
But I think along with that comes, that support that you get from the people there as well.
Yeah, that
Right.
makes sense. So I'm going to actually put that under relationships too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary, you made me think about like I'm not a big fan of the title, but it's probably the only way you can do it, and that is like travel training, right?
Mhm.
And that is important, when it comes to health and safety and those types of things. So I was thinking to, fill up that blue part, but no, it can go in eligibility, Melissa, for sure, so
Sure.
And, under technology too, there's so many community and neighborhood and Facebook groups. And, my daughter actually got her last 2 part-time jobs from postings and conversations on Facebook groups.
Sure. And I think too, like a friend of mine became a CPA recently, and part of the process of becoming a CPA is mentoring, and is being mentored by another CPA. And I think a lot of places are employment places are transitioning to that mentorships kind of style. So I think that falls under relationships too.
And just using your community and building visibility and recognition of the individual within that community, showing, their abilities lends to some natural offers within
Sure.
the community.
I mean, valuing people, Marty. I like it. Again, see, 20 minutes. Look at this.
Yeah,
Look
put on your
at
strengths
this.
too, like I mean, community resources. Maybe we have it somewhere. I don't know, but I'm just thinking like Pittsburgh compared to Ligonier. I mean, it's apples to bowling balls when it
Yep.
comes to public transportation.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean that's a huge strength, and those are community assets as well, right? So.
But quite honestly, communication has been, transportation has been quite compromised in the Pittsburgh area. A lot of the suburbs are no longer being able to be reached by buses. A
Sure.
lot of areas have been really cut out. So they're doing the access transport to the closest bus, which some people aren't able to make that transition. That's just one too many transition in their day before they start work.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
That's a good point. You got me thinking about like partnerships with business partnerships, and where they'll pay for the transportation because they're so short and staff. They're willing to do it, right?
Right. And you have church groups that are willing to pick people up to go to church with them. There's a lot of community building of relationships that, we all help each other. Somebody's car breaks down, you offer to drive them into work. Well, the same thing happens.
Sure.
I support a young lady that works quite a distance from her home, and her access didn't show up in a timely manner. And one of her coworkers said, "I'll drive you home."
Right.
I mean, so you do build a relationship, and there
Sure.
is natural support.
Sure. I like it. And I mean, ultimately, if you're considering 3 different career paths, you could do 3 different ones like this. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I think that in 20 minutes, we filled up the star pretty well. I want to stop sharing though. And I'll send this out to everybody. I'll send these out when I send the follow-up email because I want to make sure that the idea of doing the tools wasn't just to do them, but to have them as an ongoing resource so that you can kind of, if you need the hurdle help, you know what I mean? If you're stuck, you can kind of refer back to them and see, what we worked on. But we have 9 minutes left. And I want to open it up to see if anyone has any questions. Again, I think everyone did put their name and email in the chat. I will be sending out follow-up documents and supporting documents tomorrow and my contact information and all of that. But I wanted to open it up to see if anyone had any questions, anything they wanted to share, anything that they took away from this. I was not able to see all of you while I was typing, and it was kind of interesting to me when I was just listening to the group talk. Everyone was kind of piggybacking off each other. Everyone was brainstorming together and pooling ideas, and that's kind of the idea of this. You know what I mean? Is that it's not one size fits all. We can work together as a team. And if you decide you want to tackle some of these things on your own and you do get stuck, just pick up the phone or send us an email. We are here to help. We want to do these things. It's important to us, and I think it's also important for us as well. So go ahead and hush and open up the floor to any questions, thoughts, comments.
Well, this
Did
is
you guys
Anne.
get?
I'll just say that I think this is just such a benefit, just being self-reflective back on myself and things that I think about in my own life. I've been on board with this since I went to the very first training years ago. I think this is just an amazing tool across the board for everybody.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. Glad you're here.
Me too. And, I think it's interesting that,
Yeah.
Erin talked about, using it for herself. And if you've never used this, or you're supporting somebody and you think this might be a good fit for them, we always emphasize, as does Life Course, that you do it on yourself first. You can't go wrong. You're not going to make any mistakes. It's just for you anyway. You can always get your husband, wife, friend, to do it as well. So,
But I think doing it up when you do it on yourself, you experience the vulnerability that you expose other people to, and being able to share your feelings of vulnerability to make other people comfortable, I think is priceless.
I agree. It is personal, and I
It
did not
is.
realize that until, going through the ambassadors training when I had to use the tools on myself. I was
Wow.
like, wow,
Exactly.
this is personal. And I think it helps you remember that when you're working
Mhm.
with someone else, that you're asking them to share things about themselves, and to be respectful of that, and to be mindful of that.
And it also got very emotional on the level on when your coworkers were talking about things that you've already experienced, and you can insert the pain that that they're going to go through when we had talked about certain things. And that became really eye opening to be able to, help parents lead through this. And some parents are doing this because it's a final stage of their life.
Sure.
And that's very, very tender and raw. And we need to be respectful of that. But one thing I did want to add, when we were talking about service animals, when I was working with one of the individuals that is interested, that we support in gaining a service animal, she thought it was very important for her service animal to be in the store with her, because it increased her level of independence and enabled her to be a better person
Sure.
because of the extension of that relationship.
They're a team.
And
Yeah,
yes, and
Marty.
I thought that was amazing. It was just, again, that was one of those goosebump moments where, it's like, wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how everyone's different perspectives tied into is visually demonstrated in both of the
Mhm.
activities we did tonight.
Absolutely.
It just shows that, we're better together than apart. So
And what's
Marty,
really,
what you just said, though, it goes back to, what we said at the beginning about transformation, policy, and system change. Every
Mhm.
program, organization, system, and policymaker must think about a person within the context of family and community. And
Mhm.
isn't that what is going on with the animal,
Sure.
the service animal,
absolutely, it's a
whether it's
fear,
family or not,
actually.
it's part of how she, can feel comfortable in the community. So
It's
that's an awesome example.
the sad thing is it's a hope and a dream, and that's sad, because it's something that she's afraid to approach her mom about,
Sure.
because her mom has never been on board with a seeing eye dog.
Mhm.
And so this is new for her, and the first time I sat down with her, that was probably the fourth or fifth thing that she said, and her staff just was in awe, because that was something that they've worked together for a few years, and it took her probably about 15 months, if I remember correctly, for her to even start talking about it. Well, I've known the young lady for a while, but we really, it was just such an engaging conversation. And the fact that she felt, I think, like I said, it was the third or fourth thing out of her mouth that
Sure.
that's something that she wants.
I think it
And
does. I think it does promote self-advocacy. I think
Mhm.
it helps guide the process of self-advocacy.
It does.
And for me personally, like Jack, I don't know if you remember this, it was like a year ago. Jack and I were meeting with someone to work on some person-centered planning, and Jack and I had a plan. We had a plan, and we got in the person-centered planning meeting, and right out of the gate, the person we were working with and supporting had a whole different plan. Whole different plan. And I mean, because that's how things go. You want to make God laugh, you know what I mean? Make a plan. So we were kind of like, okay, well, you gotta go in the moment. And Jack, without saying a word, pulls up a trajectory on the screen, and it just drew my focus in and helped me get to where I needed to be to best support this person. So, but I also think it's funny because Jack and I no longer make plans about those kinds of things because it's not really for us to be making plans. But I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier, Jack, about, you live, you learn,
And right away, like, and I don't, I'm sure everybody has the same issue, but I have this issue where I want to fix things. So I hear Marty talking. I want to bring up this link on supported decision making, and I mean, yeah, that could be helpful or maybe not, but we don't have the time to fix it right now. So just validate it and pray for the best, and we are here. If anybody in this space, wants, us to engage with you, support you, with, planning for your son or daughter, for yourself. If, people do need resources or services, Achieva provides, and, again, the whole lifespan, please reach out to us. Mary's putting some pearls in chat right now. They did a lot of work.
I'm going to email them out to you.
Okay, good. Thank you. I won't. Yeah, but they're just awesome resources. Kara, in particular. I mean, these are statewide as well as local resources for Allegheny County. Anybody else, can use these, as well. So.
Awesome. Well, we have 1 minute left, but I'm happy to stay longer if we need to. I want to make sure that everyone who wanted to ask a question or share a thought had the opportunity to. If you have, thank you for coming. We appreciate your time. I will email supporting documents. I will also send out reminders for the Achieva Advocacy series presentations for April and May. I'll be sending out flyers and information on all of those too. But one last time around the table, anything anyone else wants to share or ask a question about before we go? Silence.
I just love you. I love these sessions. I think that people are really missing out by not taking advantage of them. Please spread the word. I know that I was late on board, but I haven't missed one since.
You haven't.
And I've learned so much, and I've been in the field for 37 years. So we never stop learning.
Nope.
And the more that we become a collective group and we learn from each other, and I just think it's so important to make the time to do these types of things.
Absolutely.